Back when the Sony FX9 was announced last year, Sony released a roadmap for future firmware updates for the camera, which would add additional features. Well, Sony have now released firmware 2.0, which has added a bunch of those improvements to the camera. So first up, there's RAW output through the XDCA back, and that's been added in output 16-bit RAW that can be recorded to 12-bit ProRes Raw to an Atomos Shogun 7. You'll be able to record ProRes Raw in 4K up to 60 frames a second and 2K up to 180 frames a second. ProRes Raw is still a relatively new format, but more and more people are adopting it since it offers fantastic flexibility in post with file sizes that are actually comparable to ProRes HQ. RAW output through the XDCA back is something we've known that Sony has been planning to add to the FX9 since its launch, and it's great to see it now here. But for many, this will not be an ideal solution, to be honest with you, since you'll be adding a good amount of extra bulk to your camera by adding that chunky XDCA back and then the Shogun 7 on top of the camera. Not to mention, of course, the extra cost of both units. But for those who already own an XDCA back or a Shogun 7, or who really want to get the best possible image quality out of the camera, this will be the way you do it, and it is a welcome improvement. Sony have also changed the way the status screen works on the camera, and firmware 2.0 has made this screen actually my favourite way to change settings quickly on the camera. All of the settings you'd want to change, so frame rate, resolution, crop mode, codec and base ISO, they're all now able to be changed through this screen. And this simply makes changing something like your frame rate, for example, just so much quicker, as it doesn't involve a deep dive into the actual Sony menu system. There are 12 pages to this status screen, which is quite a lot, but not all of them allow you to change settings. Some of them are still just status screens, but the ones which do allow you to change settings, particularly page 1, are super useful, as now you have very quick access to those settings by simply clicking in the joystick, the control wheel, or of course by actually touching the screen. Ever since the launch of the FX9, it's been rumoured that this screen was a touchscreen, and now it has finally been enabled. Now, the touchscreen support is of course great to see, but I do find for this status screen, it is that little bit slower than actually physically moving the joystick to change your settings. It can be just that bit slower to navigate, but it's still much more convenient than the normal menus for most things, and actually using a combination of the joystick and physically touching the screen is quite a nice way to do it. But the main way I've always wanted to use the touchscreen on the FX9 is to move around the focus point. Canon have had this feature on their cinema cameras for a while now, since the C200, and it's fantastic. And now Sony have it too on the FX9. It does work a little differently to Canon's though, or the mirrorless cameras like the Sony a7S Mark III. You can't just touch the screen to focus straight away. You'll need to unlock it first. This means setting the focus setting feature to an assignable button, which we've set to button number 5 on the hand grip. This unlocks that focus point, and now you can touch the screen to move it around exactly as you'd expect before locking it again with the assignable button. Touch support isn't the only improvement that Sony have made either to the autofocus, as they've also added eye autofocus, which is the first time we've seen this on a camera like this. Eye autofocus has been great to use on video for the latest mirrorless cameras, but now having it in a cinema camera just makes face detect autofocus that little bit better, especially for close-ups, as it prioritizes your subject's eyes, which is really useful if you have a really shallow depth of field. There are some changes to record formats too, such as full frame 50 and 60p support, which was previously only available in a Super 35mm crop mode. Now, this isn't full frame, it's a 5K crop, which is 17% smaller than the 6K full frame. So it's not a giant crop at all, but it's also not actual full frame. But you do still get downsampling to 4K from 5K, which is a nice trade-off. 4K DCI support has also been added, which was a feature that was strangely missing at launch, and it can be used in either the full frame 6K mode, the new 5K crop mode, or the Super 35mm crop mode. Frame rates in 2K have also been improved, with the camera now going up to 150 frames a second in 2K using the full sensor, and 180 frames a second in Super 35mm crop. Sony have also added 4K out of the SDI, user 3D lookup table supports, HLG, and the usual minor bug fixes and things like that. For me though, the biggest improvement Sony have made is the status screen and the update to the autofocus performance and how quick and easy that is to use with the touchscreen. For customers that use the FX9 and the type of work that they tend to do, autofocus just makes life that much easier. And now being able to control that through the touchscreen or have it lock onto a person's eyes in an interview, for example, makes it so much easier to use. But what do you think of the new features? Would this update make you consider buying an FX9 now if you didn't before? Let me know in the comment section down below, and if you're looking to buy an FX9 for yourself, then of course just head over to proav.co.uk. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.